Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of our Memoirs piece. Today we're talking once again about how to create a memoir for your family that will last for multiple generations. Not only your kids, but your grandkids and their grandkids. On it will go. Just as a reminder, what we're here to do today is to make sure that you know how to craft stories that will captivate, engage, and influence your audience. And right now we're talking about how to influence the people in our family for generations to come, so that the good that you have within you, you can pass on to others for generations upon generations. Now, to do that, we're going to review quickly what your assignment was from last episode. Now, if you weren't a part of that, that's okay. Just hang in here for a moment because you'll learn something anyway. Here's what the assignment was. To pick some event from your life, search for photos, video clips, anything you can find. Think through them, what they meant to you, the why behind it, what they meant to you, and then shoot yourself sharing that why. The bottom line here is that you want to be able to be in a position where you can engage people with what is on your heart. That's it. It's that simple. So I have a clip where I have demonstrated what we've talked about, but before we do that, we need to where's my button? Oh, there it is. We need to kick off the show. Here we go. Right. So here's the bottom line. We want to be in a position where we can communicate not only to our kids, but our grandkids and our great-grandkids and on down the line as long as possible. Books, yeah, you could write your memoir and it will take you a couple of years and lots of spelling corrections and thought changes and rewrites. And you know what? In this day and age, just hit the button on your video camera, your iPhone, your whatever you use, and record yourself sharing. Now record it 3 times. Let me quickly see here if I can find. Let's just run through all these real quick. These are the things that make things memorable: the visuals, the music, the heartfelt story. We want you to pick something that connects to your heart as far as maybe some flaw that you or someone in your family faced and how you overcame it. With this, we're talking more about being in the moment, as far as you recall the memory. What was it about that really was engaging? And what was the emotion that you felt that made the whole story memorable to begin with? Because we only remember things that we have emotions for. And then what can make it memorable to your audience? Then we moved on and we talked about that why factor and recording the show 3 times. And the reason for the 3 times is because you want to be able to have the first take, which will probably be your most emotional take. And you'll use a couple clips from that, maybe. The second clip, or the second take, I should say, will allow you to relax on camera a little bit more. You'll come across more genuine, more sincere, authentic. By the 3rd time, your story has become a little more concise. It gets to the point. It's not rambling all over the place. So by the 3rd take, you should have a golden one, because hopefully the emotions are still intact, the story is more concise, and you're coming across much more comfortable on camera. Now, at that point, I gave the assignment, but right now what I want to do is I'm going to show you the story first that I put together. And I have it over here somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. One of the greatest experiences a grandparent can have comes from playing with their grandkids. I remember a day when one of my granddaughters came came over to spend the day with me. Very memorable moment. It wasn't one of those babysitting assignments. It was just a play date. A day where she and I got together to play. We started out, we took a walk down to the high school where her dad graduated. I shared a bit about his high school life. And I mentioned that I had a couple of his teachers when I attended that same school. Both of my parents also walked the halls when they were students. In fact, my great aunt was in the high school's first graduating class in the 1920s. Although back then, they met in the second floor space above the bank because the school hadn't yet been built. When I shared the school's victory bell with my granddaughter, the one that rang out every time we won a football game, she was inspired to make a movie. A movie. I asked what she wanted to do, and instead of answering me, she took my hand and led me to the playground. I was amazed at how she directed me. She had clear intentions. We clearly shot out of order, so I had to trust that she knew what she was doing. She told me what shots she wanted, where I was to stand, and she rambled off these pieces of dialogue that worked. After I watched the clips, I realized that there was really only one way to cut the story together. The message was that clear, and I was amazed at how a young child could share such a complete story.
Hi, I'm Evelyn. I'm going to teach you 3 steps to ride. Down the slide. Have fun. Go down the slide. Go. Be safe. I hope you learned. See you down a car. I'm driving.
I was proud of her. Every time I watched her story, my heart soared. And not because she created a good short film, although she did, but because I'm reminded about the day we were able to play. If instead of making a short film, if she had chosen us to paint together or play catch or run a boat for the lake, that day still would have been special. You see, playtime with grandkids, there's nothing more enriching for the soul. Alrighty. So there we have an example of what it can be like. Now, I was looking off camera the whole time, looking at another person who was helping me out. Not really. I just had a tripod over there. I was looking at an empty piece of equipment. But the concept is you can have someone that you're sharing the story with. It makes it easier for you. And as you do that, you'll get to the place where the more and more of these you do, you'll be more comfortable. You'll come across at ease. And the family will appreciate it. Whether they think, oh, well, this is cute at first, or they're like, wow, he's really sharing his heart. You don't know. You don't know how they're going to react. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, the heart is going to be holding on to memories of this kind. So what we want to do is help you do the same thing. So I'm going to go back to this part of the chart here, talking again about the 3 takes. The first take, you're going to just do a run through. It's going to allow you to be emotional. Now, you noticed I was in a very windy place, and the wind does make a difference in the sound quality. So you'll want to be as close to your camera as possible or have a professional microphone. I just used a simple camera just a handful of feet away from me, and you heard the wind, you heard the cicadas, you heard the birds. I think there was one of my takes had a plane flying overhead. But the fact is, you don't need it to be a super polished Hollywood production. You just need it to be heartfelt. Then I did a second take. I was definitely more comfortable. The first time I wasn't as comfortable. Now for me, you'd think I'd be comfortable automatically. Well, you know what? There were people in the park that were kind of looking my way, trying to figure out what I was doing. And yeah, you kind of feel like you're on display a little bit. So I needed to be in a position where I could just kind of let go of that and focus in on the story. So the second take was a little bit better than the first. The first was definitely a little bit more emotional. The third take, you have the comfort level. You have some of the emotions that still reside there with you. And you also have the fact that your story is more concise. You've learned how to tell it in an easier fashion, in a shorter form, so that you don't bore your audience. So by that third take, it should be golden. Now, keep in mind, you may or may not have some rough spots, but the key is you can always go back to the first take or the second take just for a portion. You notice I cut away to the pictures of the school and my granddaughter ringing the little bell and things like that. Those could have covered edits. Those could have covered mistakes. There's lots of things you can do with those insert pictures. Now, I happened to walk around the school that day when I was filming, and I would say that I probably shot about 12 shots that I could use, but I only used two shots for the school. So you have to be prepared to let go of shots. Some people just say, oh, well, I took 12, so they're going to see all 12. Well, do all 12 really help you tell that one story you're going to tell in the mini memoir? I don't think so. You want to make sure the story you're telling is clear. So what I do in editing is I lay down the best overall take from top to bottom, and then I'll find ways of tightening it, or I will just use it as is, but that will determine the exact length and pacing of the story. And by the way, that third take, your pacing is usually pretty good. Your story's more concise. Hopefully your emotions are still intact. So it's usually a good one. In fact, what you saw was my third take. Now, I did cut out one sentence, and that was it. The rest of it was pretty much a straight run through. And the one sentence I did was because of some noise and stuff in the background, and I thought, you know what, that sentence wasn't an important one. And I also happened to use an overlay picture at that time because it made sense to do so. So it was seamless. Nobody could tell that anything had been edited from that standpoint. Now, in my case, because I was talking about my granddaughter, my experience with her on a play date, I wanted to make sure that when it came to me explaining that she wanted to make this movie, I decided I was going to just take her movie and plop it down in the middle of my show. Well, not quite the middle, but you get the idea. I think it works because the audience, not only are they hearing from me as far as how important that playtime was and how she directed me and all that kind of stuff, they actually got to see the results of what I was talking about. So it was directly correlated to my story, and as a result, that's why I wanted to put it in the memoir. And then I came back to make my closing statements. Keep in mind, when I shot it, I didn't necessarily know where that video was going to land. So I just talked about what I needed to talk about. And then when I got it into the editor system, I then looked for where's the best natural break, found it, and stuck the video there in the natural break. So that's what you do as well. You take your best overall take, you set it up as the base unit for the story. If you have inserts, you can put inserts in. And if you have any bad segments, you can go to one of your other takes and just cut out that segment, the good part of that segment, and then put it in place of the bad segment. Ideally, to make it simpler, you can have the camera maybe zoomed in a little closer on one or farther out on the other, or positioned slightly different, and that way the cuts seem more natural. If it's a match cut to a match cut, it doesn't look as natural. It almost is startling sometimes because there's a little bit of a jump. If you have an insert to cover those cuts, fantastic. If you don't, it's always best to move the camera. And if you move the camera, you want them to be about 30 degrees apart from each other. That way there's enough of a difference in the camera shot that it looks like it was an artistic choice. So 30 degrees separation. So what some people do is they can decide on where's the 3 camera spots. On the first spot, let's just do it this way. Pick 2 spots for your camera. One that's angled this way at you, one that's angled this way at you, but both that are shooting you, and one of them you can shoot as close-up and a longer shot or a medium shot, and the other one you can shoot as a close-up and or medium shot as well. Then sometimes you can go through the motions of doing the same thing as you're talking like this, but have the camera far away so that you can see your full body. Now you won't be able to record your voice and stuff on that version, but if you look like you're talking, it can be a nice filler shot that can replace some mistake. So that's something to consider as well. So the key is, again, to have those 3 different takes, cut them together, put inserts in. Then you need to also think about, what am I going to do for the beginning and what am I going to do for the end? In my case, I just use simple titles. You don't have to be fancy. Just simple little titles will do. Let me just run the beginning of the film one more time so you can see the opener. One of the greatest experiences. Okay, now I did do that one little special effect. Believe it or not, that one special effect took an entire hour. Where doing the titles took me 3 or 4 minutes. But I thought, you know what? I need something to allow the audience to realize, okay, there's a story here that's going to take place. Get ready to pay attention. And that's why I did that little special effect piece. Then at the end of your story, you just want to have, some kind of a close of some sort, whether it's a shot of your grandchild playing at the park, or if it's... Okay, hopefully we didn't lose you there. I just noticed everything froze up for a moment. This says it's still live, so I'm going to trust it is. Anyway, for the ending, you just want a little touch of something. Piece to let the people know the story is wound down, and now it's time for the show to close. And then I just fade to black. Now, the last thing that I did, you notice I had a music track under probably 2/3 of the show. Plus I had my granddaughter's video, of course, had music too, but I'm talking about the interview segment. That music was added at the very end. So I basically found some music that was the right length. I cut it a certain way. Now I had the music drop out a little bit as I went to talk about how clear her message was, because I wanted that to be a little more startling, a little more of a sharp focus, so the audience realized, okay, my granddaughter could tell a message of some sort. Now certainly it was a simple message. There was only 3 points to it, and they were literally small little points, but still a clear message nonetheless. Not counting enunciations and issues like that. Obviously she was very, very young. So that's the idea, to use the music to accentuate things. That also cut down on some of the background noise that you could hear, and helped you, the audience, to focus in on what I was actually saying during the clip. Now keep in mind there's one other aspect that you want to consider. Do you want to be talking to the people like I'm talking to you, where I'm looking you in the eye? Or do you prefer when the person is talking off camera slightly to somebody that's over by the camera but not the camera? That's a decision you have to make. That's an artistic choice. In my case, I wanted it to be more about the fact that I was sharing a story with somebody else, and you were kind of eavesdropping in on the story I was sharing. So that's the way I chose to move. And then one other last thing. I did an overall color correction on each of the camera shots, so nothing was too hot or too dark, pretty well balanced. And then on top of that, I did color grading, where I literally put a colorized filter situation. I call it a situation because it's a combination that creates an algorithm that colors the image that you see. So I actually recolored all the shots. Now, I didn't touch my granddaughter's video. That was intact as it had originally played. But in my scenes, I made sure that there was evenness in the look and the feel of it. I had the right amount of contrast that I wanted, the right amount of brightness and coloration. So those are the kinds of things that you consider doing, and that's where we end up. So anyway, at this point, that's all we have for today, and I just want to thank you. Where's my... Oh, there it is. I was looking for the close of the show. Good luck with your memoirs. Bye.